Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming downstairs today. Today is obviously a very momentous day for all Canadians as our new Prime Minister and his cabinet ministers were sworn in. And I'd like to congratulate all of the women and men who took the oath of office this morning in Ottawa. In particular, I want to extend my congratulations to Calgary's Kent Hare, who is serving as the Minister of Veterans Affairs and the Associate Minister of National Defence, and Edmonton's Amarjeet Sohi, the new Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Having two Albertans in the federal cabinet can only be a plus for our province. In fact, I know it will be because I served, as you know, alongside Kent for many years in the Legislative Assembly. And I can tell you he's fiercely proud of Alberta, always ready to speak up for our interests, and he will shine in his new roles. And on Edmonton City Council, Amarjeet Sohi has proven himself to be a strong community champion. I'm also pleased to see that 15 of the 31 seats in the federal cabinet are held by women. And seven of Alberta's 13 cabinet ministers are women. And so I'm very hopeful that we've started a trend and that gender balance will become the norm in ministerial circles across Canada wherever possible. At the very least, I'm pretty sure we've started a trend in swearing-in ceremonies. Prime Minister Trudeau obviously shares my tastes in terms of how to organize them. Actually, I'm feeling overall very optimistic in general about Canada's new government. Our respective governments are both focused on creating renewed prosperity that is better shared amongst Canadians. And I'm excited to be collaborating, or for the opportunity to collaborate on economic recovery, on economic diversification, which are so critical to supporting jobs and families in Alberta. Equally important, there are opportunities for meaningful joint action on climate change, and I'm looking forward to that as well. The Paris Climate Conference, as you know, is only a few weeks away, and I think the conditions are set for Canada to take its rightful place, showing leadership in mitigating climate change. So it's a pleasure today for me to congratulate Prime Minister Trudeau and his cabinet ministers. I'm confident we'll have a productive relationship, and I very much look forward to working with them on the issues that matter to all Canadians and to all Albertans. Thank you, and I'll be very pleased to take your questions.
What do you think of the two portfolios that went to Alberta ministers, infrastructure and veterans affairs, two fairly significant ones?
They are. Well, I think it bodes well. I mean, obviously, as you know, Alberta has a number of different and competing infrastructure needs, and so I look forward to being able to have some good conversations on how we can partner with the federal government on some of our infrastructure priorities. So obviously having someone like Amarjeet Sohi, who has a good sound understanding of a number of the infrastructure needs in our province is encouraging to me. And we also know, of course, that Veterans Affairs is something that matters a great deal to all Canadians. We have a strong representation of veterans in the armed forces in Alberta, and so I'm pleased that we'll have a minister who will clearly, from a geographic basis, be able to have a good relationship with members of the armed services or the armed forces. So I anticipate good things from them, and as I've said, look forward to working with them.
Your government, after voting down an amendment to a private member's bill 203 and referring the subject matter to committee, has today moved to rescind that amendment and put the bill back on the order paper. What motivated that action today?
What we are hoping to be able to do is move that, refer that bill to the Ethics Committee without killing the bill. And so that was certainly not the intention, as you know, of our caucus. We support the principle behind that bill, always have. As you know, we lived the principle behind that bill very definitively in the by-election in Calgary this summer, and it's always been our position that we need to move forward on it. We also, however, felt that it was important to put it to the committee to make sure that it was fully fleshed out and that we got the best bill possible. That was the intention of referring it to the Ethics and the Special Standing Committee on Ethics and Accountability, and it was sort of only as that process was going forward that we discovered that it killed the bill. And so we were subsequently received advice that if we rescind that and change the standing orders, that we'll be able to refer the bill in its entirety to that committee and maintain it with the current ownership and the current sponsorship. So it was a goodwill gesture.
Premier, in your statement, you mention climate change, but you don't mention oil, you don't mention gas, you don't mention energy, you don't mention pipelines. Why not?
Primarily because in the most immediate term, we anticipate being, having to work with them on the climate change piece because we're only about 2.5 weeks away from having to go to Paris. I actually am very optimistic and hopeful about the opportunities that I will have to raise the issue of Alberta's need and all Canadians' need for pipeline infrastructure to Tidewater. And I anticipate having greater opportunities to advocate directly to the Prime Minister on these issues based on his planned approach to federal-provincial relations. And there is no question that I will be raising repeatedly the importance of this issue, not only to Albertans and to Alberta industry, but to all Canadians. Because in my view, the recovery of our energy industry and our ability to get our product to Tidewater is not only important to the people of the province, but it is important for the Canadian economy as a whole. So I will be making that case quite vigorously at every opportunity.
Going back to the issue of gender balance, you talked about the number of women in politics. You have an MLA who is pregnant and giving birth early next year, but the rules don't let an MLA take time off for maternity leave. What can be done about that?
Well, you raise a good question, as has MLA McLean, and we've been deliberating on how to fix it. Obviously, it's an artifact, and it's I would suggest an archaic piece of legislation in that respect, and probably would not stand the test or withstand the test of a charter challenge. So we're looking at how we can, in the long term, obviously, we're going to change that piece of legislation, no question. It's got to be fixed. It's wrong. In the shorter term, we're looking at different strategies to ensure that MLA McLean, Ms. McLean, suffers no economic loss as a result of that outdated piece of legislation. And so we may be able to pass new legislation in time, we may be able to pass it retroactively, or we may be able to take the matter to member services to see if there's another way for member services to develop a policy that would ensure that no economic loss flows as a result of the principles in that legislation. So we're looking at different ways to fix it, but we will fix it, and we will make sure that she suffers no economic loss. And let me just say, we're very much looking forward to the new caucus member that we will be having, and I look forward to giving her the first ever, well, the Jack Layton onesie, but the first one given to a caucus member here in Alberta. So she is, we're very excited for her. I think I can probably do that, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can't compete with that.
Can I ask you about charges against Direct Energy? The Service Alberta has decided to charge Direct Energy for, under the Consumer Protection Act, and I'm wondering why this approach to Direct Energy at this time. And I know there are certain violations that were noted, but why this approach to dealing with this?
To be honest, I haven't been specifically briefed on that. I assume what it is that the matter is just taking its normal course through a fairly independent regulatory process. And so I'm sure that those who've been tasked with the responsibility to make sure that Direct Energy follows the rules have completed their investigation and just moved on as they should to the next stage. I've not been part of that decision-making process.
Premier, going back to climate change, are you concerned about the optics of you driving a large SUV when you're preaching action against global warming?
Well, there's no question that you know, it would in some ways optically be better for me to be driving a one-seated car. The difficulty is that I typically travel in that vehicle with 3 to 5 staff members, almost always. But more to the point, the vehicle that we have now is one that was ordered by the last government on the recommendations of EPU as being the safest and the most secure. That being said, officials in the Ministry of Environment are consulting with officials in Service Alberta to look at how we can adjust the policy around the fleet vehicles to enhance both their to reduce their cost and to enhance their environmental integrity.
Can I get back to the issue you were talking about in terms of parental leave? What sort of practical ideas do you think the policy should include for parental leave or childcare or both?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a difficult issue. I mean, you have the immediate issue, obviously, of being, of course, appropriately being able and needing to be able to take time to deliver your baby and to adjust to that. And, you know, so in the same way that EI and other places, other government mechanisms distinguish between sort of the delivery period and then the parenting period as far as what's compensated. So we have to deal with the sort of delivery period, but we also, as some analysts have and commentators have already pointed out, it's a bit of a different situation when you're in an elected position for a short term. How do you balance those interests and the interests of your constituents to have representation against the fact that other people, you know, get the full, you know, year off through mat leave? And so I think we're going to have a bit of a conversation about that because, I think what we're likely going to be looking at is trying to inject flexibility into how the job is done to encourage women and young women of childbearing years to be politicians and to be active, but not at the same time to bring in a policy that would undercut the representational needs of constituents. I always used to joke around when I first got elected that if I could have job shared with Raj Panu, I would have been all over that plan. But that's not the way democracy works. So there's going to have to be some creative problem solving on this one. But the key is to acknowledge that elected officials have kids and to make sure that, generally speaking, we develop a more family-friendly way of doing this job that still ensures that the representational interests of citizens are met.
I mean, you're going to Toronto next.
Do you have to have something in place before February?
Well, as I say, we have the immediate term thing in terms of what happens with respect to Ms. McLean and her pay. And as I say, we have different strategies at our disposal to make sure she suffers no loss, and that's what we will do.
You're going to
Miriam,
Toronto
sorry,
next-
Miriam, we'll go to you. Do you still have a question time? And then we're gonna go to the phones.
You're going to be speaking in Toronto next week. I'm wondering if you'll be speaking anywhere else out there while you're traveling and what message you're going to be bringing to that audience.
Well, it depends. I think I haven't actually been briefed yet on my schedule for Toronto. I know that I'm delivering a speech at the Broadband Institute, but that I'm actually meeting with a number of different people throughout the day. And I'm not sure if there's any speeches in there as well, but meeting with business leaders, investment officials, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I haven't been completely briefed on all of what's going on that day.
For the speech that you're going to be giving at the Broadband Institute, what kind of message are you going to be bringing to the audience out there?
You know, again, I haven't had a real chance to prepare for that. That's, 8 days away. We'll probably be talking a lot about the record of our government, what we've done to promote principles that I think are important to people at the Broadband Institute, ensuring stability in public services, ensuring a balanced approach to fiscal challenges, ensuring that we engage in realistic economic stimulus and job creation opportunities, while also talking about some of the other things our government's done with respect to renewing a progressive tax system and generally taking steps to reduce inequality in the province of Alberta. So off the top of my head, those would be some of the key points that we'll be talking about.
We haven't heard a lot out of this government on the New West partnership. Is this a partnership that you fully support and will move ahead as you inherited, or do you see Alberta taking a different role in this?
Well, I think that, we'll have to review all the terms of it and determine which of those align with principles that are important to this government. But at the same time, what we do has to be done within the context of enhancing trade and preserving current trade relationships to ensure that Alberta businesses maintain or build their trade opportunities. And so there's the New West Partnership. There's also the issue with respect to the Agreement on Internal Trade. All of the premiers have signed on to wanting to see progress there, and so we need to make sure that the New West Partnership aligns with that, and also that the New West Partnership aligns with I think some of the additional objectives that may be determined as a result of enhanced federal-provincial relationships.
So are there specific clauses in there that you have concerns with that you've come across to this point?
We're still waiting to get sort of the whole piece evaluated by our officials, particularly as it relates to the agreement on internal trade as compared to the New West partnership. But at the end of the day, whatever we do will be done within the overarching commitment to preserve and build the trade opportunities of Alberta companies.
We're gonna go to the phone now. Operator, can you put through the first caller?
Your first question comes from the line of James Wood with the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Hi, Premier. Wanted to go back to the cabinet appointments today. As you noted, you were first elected in the same election as Mr. Hare. I was just wondering if you could get a little personal for a minute. Are you friends with him? What was your relationship like with him? What, any sort of personal thoughts about his appointment to this role?
Well, I'm very excited for him. I always enjoyed working with Kent Hare. I think it's fair to say that most people in the legislature enjoyed working with Kent Hare. He's a very agreeable, affable, friendly person who was pretty straight up about a lot of things. I was joking around earlier today about how many of us from our little corner of the legislature appear to be doing a little bit better these days, so that's kind of exciting, because there was a time when we'd be in the house late at night ruminating how maybe our lives didn't seem quite so successful. So that's good. But I mean, Kent, I know, is motivated by a desire to serve the best interests of his constituents and Albertans, as are most people who are in public service. And he's, as I said, a very likable guy, and I think that will ensure that our message is delivered effectively to his colleagues in Ottawa.
Sorry, Premier, if I could just follow up on that as well. There is a new energy minister and a new environment minister. Are you familiar with, do you have any familiarity with the new people in those posts? And I guess, what are you hoping to see from the energy minister specifically?
Well, as I say, I look forward to having an opportunity to meet with all of our federal counterparts who have major decision-making roles in and around, particularly the issue of getting our product to Tidewater. And so my hope is that we'll be able to engage in a drama-free discussion about how to enhance pipeline infrastructure in Canada in a way that promotes not only the economic development of Albertans, but the economic prosperity of all Canadians. And I think that as we do our part with respect to improving our record on the environment, that we will, with this government, earn even more airtime on that issue. That's certainly my hope anyway, and that's the way I'm going to approach it, because I do understand that this is an important issue to the energy industry, and it is therefore an important piece to our economic strength, and so it's something that's a priority for me.
Operator, please put through the next call.
Your next question comes from the line of Don Braid with the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Premier, I just have a quick three-part question. It will be quick if only people wouldn't laugh at me, especially Premier. When will we see the climate change policy? This is coming up really fast, so you were going to announce it beforehand, so when are we going to see that? That's number one.
Okay, so it's not three related questions. Anyway, you're quite right. We hope to be able to reveal some substantive parts of the direction we're heading in the week before I would leave to Paris, so the week of the 23rd or 24th of November. And so that's what we're shooting for. There is a remarkable amount of work going on. There is, there's late night after late night after late night of incredibly talented people that are coming to the table to work on different streams of this. It's, I've been very pleased with the quality of the work and the research and the discussion that's going forward. And I'm feeling fairly optimistic that we're going to be able to come forward with a fair amount of detail. It won't all be wrapped up in a bow and ready to be implemented the next day. But I think people will see that that the government's taking this very seriously, and that a lot of work has gone into this, and that it will set us on a very progressive and balanced path forward.
So, to follow that quickly on the representation, there's a lot of regional imbalances, the kind of people used to worry about, but don't seem to worry about nearly so much anymore. There's 7 ministers from the GTA, and there's 8 from all of the West, which leads me to, are you concerned, like you want alignment with the federal government, obviously, you want to be in some kind of alignment, but are you concerned that because of this Central Canadian Western imbalance, that some of these ministers, the cabinet might end up wanting a lot more on climate change than Alberta is prepared to give?
Well, I mean, we're going to do what we think we can do to improve our record in a way that not only supports Albertans, but supports generations of Albertans to come. But we're going to also do that in a balanced way that allows the industry to still be healthy and prosperous, because quite frankly, as I've said before, not only does our economy depend on this, but so frankly does the whole country's. And I think that regardless of the representational issues and the numbers, the fact of the matter is that most business experts look at the economic growth map over the next 10 or 15 years, and they see Alberta as leading that, and they see us as playing a critical role. And so we will represent the interests of Albertans with that fully in mind.
Is there any hope that you can align with them so quickly? I mean, they're brand new, and who knows what the policy is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, certainly the Prime Minister has talked about giving different provinces the capacity to come up with their own plan. And, we'll see how close we come to the targets that they're looking at, and we'll see how their targets are framed. But we are going to make some very significant progress, some very significant change. We are going to do our part. It will not necessarily be the same amount that a province that runs almost entirely on hydro will do, but we will do a good deal of merit, and so I'm confident that at least at the outset that we'll be able to establish a pretty effective partnership with the federal government on this.
We're going to take our last question from the phone. Operator, please put through the last caller.
Your next question comes from the line of Lucas Meyer with 660 News Calgary. Your line is open.
Hi, Kramer, and thanks for taking my question. Just wondering if I could get your reaction to something that the president of the Public Services, the Petroleum Services Association of Canada said yesterday with regards to the drilling forecast that came out, saying that, while they're committed to working with the NDP government, the fact is there is a new NDP government. There's obviously the royalty review, the climate change policy, as you mentioned, all during an economic downturn, and with looking at 3% reduction activity for 2016. It's a lot for his members to deal with, all of this uncertainty, and there's a lot of concern. So, given those statements, how do you ensure that, given this new forecast, that they're going to be able to prosper while you're implementing all these changes? If you could react to that sentiment.
Well, I think there's a few important pieces there. First of all, our royalty review and our climate change review both involve and include robust representation from oil and gas industry folks. And so their concerns are heard, and you will see that they are being balanced, and that there is a great deal of attention paid, particularly to the current situation within which the oil and gas industry finds itself, and the uncertainty around the low price of oil. I mean, I think that the issue of uncertainty, we need to keep that in context. The price of oil dropped, 40 or 50% in the space of about 6 months. That is uncertainty. That is also the nature of the industry. Nothing that this government has been talking about doing comes anywhere close to having that level or quantity of impact. And so, and moreover, what we are doing is working very collaboratively with people from within the industry as we move forward. It is the responsibility of government to make sure that our policies on both the environment as well as on royalties are modernized and take into account both environmental pressures as well as the changing economic times, as well as the evolving way in which the industry works. And it would be irresponsible for us, on behalf of Albertans, to insist that we hold on to a royalty regime that was developed 10 years ago, that the industry has long since moved past. That's not good governance on behalf of Albertans. So we're working together to make sure that we come up with a rational, modernized system, and there is a great deal of communication on a variety of different platforms with proponents from the oil and gas industry.
And any comment on the U.S. State Department declining the application from TransCanada to pause the application for the Keystone XL pipeline?
Well, you know, the TransCanada made the decision that they made to ask for that pause on the basis of their own business strategy, and so be it. And the American government has responded on the basis of their political interests and drivers. And neither of those things are things that the Alberta government has any control over. Again, whether we're talking about that pipeline or whether we're talking about other pipelines, Energy East in Canada, the issue is what we can do as a government to ensure that we have a record that does not impede the social license that is necessary in different settings to ensure that the pipeline construction is approved and the product within that pipeline is welcomed into other markets. And so that's what we're going to focus on right now. And we're going to focus on, as I've said, working with the federal government as well as our counterparts across the country to look at where we can make progress on getting a pipeline to Tidewater.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.